Now to our discussion tonight. Prime Minister Modi is set to visit France next week as India and France mark 25 years of their strategic partnership. The two countries entered into a strategic partnership in 1998, reflecting a convergence of views on international issues apart from a close and growing bilateral relationship. The areas of cooperation have largely been defense, space, civil nuclear cooperation and coming together on the climate agenda. In the defense arena, some major engagements include purchase of Rafale aircraft, the intergovernmental agreement for the purchase of 36 Rafale jets by India in flyaway condition, the P-75 Scorpion project, the contract for 6 Scorpion submarines in 2006. All 6 vessels are to be built under technology transfer at Mazagong docks. The first submarine, INS Calvary, was commissioned in October 2017. In space, ISRO and the French Space Agency CNES are carrying on various joint research programs and launch of satellites. A civil nuclear cooperation was signed between India and France in September 2008 during the visit of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. In climate and sustainability, the cooperation in the International Solar Alliance is one major coming together of the two countries and leading the rest of the world. So tonight we analyze the hits and the misses of the 25 years of the strategic partnership and where it is headed next. Let's first take a look at this report.
When these Indian Army, Air Force and Navy soldiers march down the Champs-Élysées in Paris next Friday, they'll be reviving an abiding link between India and France. An association that is often forgotten in India, but never in France. 74,000 Indian soldiers were killed in action in the First World War, many fighting in France and Western Europe. Indian soldiers returned to fight in the Second World War, a massive contribution against a global enemy, Nazi fascism. On Bastille Day, France's National Day, 269 Indian soldiers will march down Paris's Grand Avenue. Our Air Force's Rafale fighters will fly overhead, and our Prime Minister will be the guest of honor as both nations celebrate 25 years of a strategic relationship. The visit, the second high-profile international visit of the Prime Minister in just 2 weeks, is likely to be both substantive and symbolic. India and France are in talks for the Navy to acquire 26 additional Rafale fighters for India's new aircraft carrier, the Vikrant. Both countries are looking at a jet engine deal for India's under-development stealth fighter, where France has reportedly offered 100% transfer of tech. France and India are also believed to be looking at the manufacture of additional French-designed Scorpion-class submarines in India for the Navy. The Prime Minister has a long-standing personal equation with France's President Macron, who will be alongside him during the Bastille Day parade. The Prime Minister, as always, will have a diaspora event with the Indian community. President Macron will host him at a personal dinner. Both leaders will see a dazzling fireworks display over the Eiffel Tower during Bastille Day. The Prime Minister is expected to visit the Louvre Museum to see the world-famous Mona Lisa painting as well. Though the Prime Minister will be in France for just 2 days, Thursday and Friday, he'll have a packed agenda, with a joint statement at the end of the visit likely to spell out the future of the strategic relationship between both countries. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
Let me bring in our guests now. Dr. Mohan Kumar, former Indian ambassador to France, Lieutenant General Satish Dua, former Chief Integrated Defence Staff, Major Muhammad Ali Shah, Defence and Strategic Expert, and Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former diplomat. Dr. Mohan Kumar, coming first to you, sir. Despite the entire controversy over Rafale, is there a likelihood of the government moving forward on further purchases, as has been spelt out in our report there?
I think yes, there is a good possibility that happens, and that's because I think there is a feeling in India that France is trusted strategic partner. We've got about 30 strategic partnerships in the world. I cannot think of a strategic partnership which is based more on trust and confidence. Both countries believe in an independent foreign policy. Both countries practice strategic autonomy. Both countries seek a multipolar world. So controversy or no controversy, this is the best equipment that the Indian Air Force wanted. For me, that is the bottom line. If that is the best equipment that you want, and if that is what your armed forces are seeking, I think, frankly, we should go out of our way to make sure they get that. So my brief answer to your question is yes. I don't know whether you want me to address other issues of the visit, but
we will come to that.
Perhaps we can do that later. Thank you.
Yes, we'll come to that. So we have just broken down this discussion in the form of defense partnership and the other areas of partnership. So we're starting off with the defense partnership and cooperation, since that has been the major thrust between the two countries over the years. Lieutenant General Dua, in 2020, a CAG report had come down heavily saying that Dassault Aviation, the French manufacturer of Rafale, had not delivered on its promises regarding technology transfer. Is it time for India to press on this aspect, especially after what we've seen India being able to do in the US with the GE jet engines deal with HAL, where we are going to see technology transfer? So is it necessary that similar yardsticks are now applied to other countries as well, because India wants to make in India now?
You're right to say that India wants to make in India now. Let me begin with that sentence. In the past few years, in the recent years, the kind of thrust that is being given on Atmanirbharta in defense or make in India, especially in the defense field, is unprecedented. And it is required. It is required for any country that aspires to be a regional power, a global power later. So we have to be self-reliant, or we cannot be dependent on foreign manufacturers for defense. Now coming to your question specifically. Yes, technology transfers are very important. And like we've seen recently, the deal that has been cut with the US, and it remains to be translated into action. But I mean, that's where we are looking at a technology transfer of technology. Here is a chance, and I'm sure that our planners, our officials will work that out, will work that into the deal, that if we go in for for acquiring the naval variant, the marine variant of the Rafales, we will have better deals in technology transfers. And before I end, let me just also say that President Macron has himself said he is willing to give us, and I think you mentioned that in your report also, is willing to give us aviation engine technology. So we are looking at better than just transfer of technology, and the nuance is it is being called as co-production. So that actually helps us, because we have a technology gap that we want to cover, and this is the kind of deal, these are the kind of deals which will make that technology jump possible.
Major Mohammad Ali Shah, coming now to the choice of Scorpion, that was because of Exocet, a missile manufacturer that merged with the French defense entity MBDA, providing Indian Navy with underwater missile capability. However, I understand now fresh negotiations will have to be conducted as existing contracts have concluded. Does this once again bring us to the issue of tech transfer and why it's needed in all sectors of security? All right, we seem to be losing the audio and video there of our guest. Let me go across to Ambassador Prabhu Dayal now. Ambassador Dayal, does all of this show that in the defense sector specifically, we have quite a few hits, as we have pointed out? There has been cooperation between India and France as far as defense is concerned, but there are gaps that still need to be filled.
Well, if I get you correctly, you are pointing at the gaps which have existed sometimes in regard to transfer of technology.
Right.
Now, during our talks relating to the preparations that are going on between the two sides for this visit, I think we have underlined the importance we are attaching to the transfer of technology. And I have seen the interview which the French ambassador recently gave to the media, and he has categorically confirmed that there will be transfer of technology, and as the previous panelist said, in fact, what is being envisaged is co-production. India is not going to be buying these without assurances that there will be concrete steps taken towards transfer of technology, which is what we want, and the French do understand the emphasis that we are laying on Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India. So, if I answer your question correctly, let me also mention that for all these reasons, the aspect of defense cooperation will enjoy the pride of place during the visit. There will be Indian troops marching down the Champs-Élysées. There will be the Rafale jets which are Indian owned, which will be giving the fire pass. But the point is, all this is what the French want to do to highlight the importance which they are attaching to the aspect of the defense relationship, where from our point of view, if any equipment is to come to us from France, then it has to be in terms of the transfer of technology that we seek.
All right. Major Mohammad Ali Shah is back with us. So the final question on defense to him, you were speaking with regards to the Scorpion class submarines.
Right, Ma, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Ma, firstly, I would like to tell my friend in France who are listening to me, bonjour, comment allez-vous? And I think,
All right. We seem to have lost his connection yet again. So let's turn our attention now to the other aspects of this visit. Dr. Mohan Kumar, I want to come specifically to you on the UNSC permanent seat that India has been asking for. France has been a backer for India there. Have we seen any concrete sort of steps that any of these countries, including the US there, having taken to push for India as a country for permanent seat and for UN reforms which are very critical?
I think it's a little unfair to kind of cling to this statement by France and say that, listen, you have to somehow make sure that we become a member of the Security Council. There is no consensus in the UN Security Council. India knows that, France knows that, other countries know that. I would emphasize the solid help and support that we have received from France in the UN Security Council when it comes to listing of terrorists, when it comes to negotiating the Comprehensive Counterterrorism Treaty in the UN. We need a permanent member of the Security Council who can stand by India. And I'm happy to tell you that France has taken the lead on some of these discussions, even as compared to the other permanent members of the Security Council with whom we have a good relationship. So France has stood by India in the UN Security Council. I have no reason to doubt France when it says it'll be happy to see India as a permanent member of the Security Council. The problem, though, is that the UN process itself is tortuous, and therefore we need a 2/3 majority in the General Assembly. You need a consensus in the UN Security Council. Neither of these things seem likely in the short run. I would therefore say that we look forward to France for cooperation in the context of G20 that we will be presiding over. And in all multilateral fora, France has supported us solidly. I would underline that France has been responsible for our membership in the Missile Technology Control Regime. They have been responsible for our entry into the Wassenaar Group, and they continue to support our membership in the nuclear suppliers group. So I would say that France has gone out of its way to make sure that our interests are safeguarded in the UN Security Council.
Let's shift to another issue now. Lieutenant General Satish Dua, the issue of Ukraine. Now, European countries are necessarily going to raise this issue, raise the issue of how India can, in fact, push Russia, with which it has good relations, to end this war. India has already tried to do its bit, and the war continues. And we all know the fallouts of the war as well on fuel, as well as the food crisis and insecurity that it has created. Are we likely to see, sir, discussion during the meeting on this critical issue? How do you anticipate this might come up?
In today's scenario, when two leaders of two democratic nations meet, the war in Ukraine is bound to come up. And both the countries have very similar views in terms of wanting the war to end by negotiation and diplomacy rather than by fighting. So the issue will certainly be decided, will certainly be discussed. But
Right.
India has always, just as France, but India has better relations with Russia, and India has always, though we are sympathetic to the cause of Ukraine, but we've always exercised our strategic autonomy, and we have asked, Prime Minister himself personally has asked the President Putin that this is, I mean, he said his sentence was actually, has been used in multilateral fora, even by the UN, to say that this is not an era of war. So you're right to say that this issue will come up, but I suppose there also our country would continue to hold their own stand and exercise its own strategic autonomy, but also do what is in our national interest.
Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, but we wouldn't see any kind of pressure being created by a country like France, as we have seen with some other European nations or even with the US. I mean, the pressure has come down. It is more nuanced now what these countries have been trying to communicate to India. Earlier, they were pretty harsh in their language, especially with regards to the oil offtake from Russia by India. But as far as the issue of Ukraine is concerned, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, I also understand that even President Macron himself does have some amount of sway with President Vladimir Putin, because even though he has been keeping it under the radar, I think he was very instrumental in getting the humanitarian corridors opened initially for the movement of civilians outside Ukraine, or getting them out of Ukraine. Do you think that together India and France can perhaps do something with regards to the Ukraine war? Is their coming together necessary?
Well, Maha, I think your question is in the context of the global geopolitical significance. Now, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war is very important in that. But frankly speaking, both India and France have only a limited degree to which they can interfere or intervene in that context. However, there is an equally important challenge in the geopolitical area which the two countries can address jointly. And I'm referring to the challenge posed by Chinese expansionism in the Indian Ocean region. Both India and France are closely engaged in a dialogue which factors in all aspects of the Chinese challenge due to its expansionist policy. Of course, we face it directly across the line of actual control. And therefore, we have great defense needs, which the French do understand. And if we want to manufacture equipment, then understand that this is because of the huge challenge that we face due to our security environment. Now, there, for instance, you referred to the manufacture of the Scorpion class submarines. I may mention that there are some submarines which the French want to manufacture in India for supply to other countries. This is what I have picked up from the media. Now, that would be significant if these submarines could be supplied to some of the countries which border the Indian Ocean region. Because the challenge of combating China there is very real, and certainly it will be something that the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Macron, will discuss during their meetings in Paris.
All right. Major Mohammad Shah is back with us. We lost your connection earlier there, but we moved on from core defense issues. So I want your comment on the symbolism of this visit.
Right, firstly, my apologies. I was in a bad network area, perhaps, and that's why my network couldn't come
problem.
in. Now, the very fact is, India very, very clear about our defense policies, about our foreign policies, about our international affairs policies. So the very fact is, we will buy the equipment with the best equipment with the best deal available to us. Whether there is controversy or no controversy, the very fact is, again, the Rafale it is a very, very powerful aircraft. It's got a lot of technology. So the very fact that when we make in India, like I'll give you a small example. When our Prime Minister had just gone to US and Egypt, we signed a lot of deals over there regarding defense, perhaps the largest defense deals. There was a lot of hue and cry over there that why the equipment cannot be made in India. There are several technical reasons for that. Why those equipment, like for example the drones, could not be made in India. We don't have the required technology to make it. Secondly, it takes a long time. So most certainly, all the deals that he's going to France, and the very fact is, mainly it's going to be defense. And the world knows that India is going to be investing a lot in defense, in securing its borders and for its soldiers. So the world knows that. And that is very much visible in the kind of reception our Prime Minister is getting throughout the world. It's not about Mr. Modi itself, it's about the country, it's about the whole nation. And I think we are very, very proud to be as Indians. And yes, he is leading the way. I mean, there's no question about that. The very fact that earlier the defense procurement was stalled for a very, very long time. It's a very cumbersome deal. Like there is first RFI, RFP, that's like for everyone to understand, there's a tender that's issued. Then there is bidding, and the lowest bidder gets the bid. Thereafter there is field testing, trials. There is a whole lot of things, and ultimately there's a PNC. That's the Price Negotiation Committee. Okay. That is where the final pricing is actually decided, where everything, whether we are going to have the deal or not. So the very fact is, with our Prime Minister going to France, and of course they are willing to give us, they have offered us more equipment, which I'm certain we will look into, and we'll have a proper committee and proper sit through, and we will get the best equipment from there.
All right. Okay. All right. We'll have to leave it at that. We've run out of time, but many thanks to all four of our guests for joining us here on this discussion tonight.